battle. I think it's more of a discussion than anything, because
Discussion.
we're not trying to win, even though I'm the winner.
All right, so we'll debates have winners, right? Okay, so today we're going to be discussing interactive whiteboards and iPads. And I have a couple of questions for the two of you, and I just want to get your view on how you feel about it. The first question is interactive whiteboard technology outdated?
I believe interactive whiteboard technology is outdated because they seem more costly, and it's something that generally schools only have a few of. So most of the time, all the classrooms aren't equipped with the interactive whiteboard, and you have to sort of selectively choose whichever ones that you want to, what rooms you want to put in, and then that leaves some people out, and possibly others are able to have the technology, and they're also big and cumbersome as well. They can't be transported. They have to go in one room, and then that's it. I think we've gotten to a time where we have iPads and tablets that are more mobile. You can take all your information with you. You don't necessarily need a big, gigantic board that has all these capabilities in it. And so I think the iPad is the way to go for the future.
Well, I tend to disagree, because if you look at the entire spectrum of education, I think maybe your focus is primarily on higher ed, where the presence of whiteboards is a bit more sporadic. However, if you look into K through 12, it is more prevalent. And for example, my daughter's school, there's a smart board or an interactive whiteboard in every classroom. And if you scan across campus here, I think that the interactive whiteboard is more prevalent in some disciplines where it's not as prevalent in others. For example, the education department has a number of whiteboards. I don't know the exact number, but I know that if we were to look at the number of smart boards currently being used in comparison to the number of iPads being used in the classroom right now, I think the smart boards would outweigh the iPads. And another, during my research, I found that some faculty members are actually looking to incorporate the use of the iPad with the smart board. So that's another option that could be investigated. So I don't think that interactive whiteboards are necessarily outdated. I think they definitely have evolved over time since 1991, when the first smart board was actually introduced.
Well, I disagree with you there because if I look back, I don't think the interactive whiteboard has changed at all. It still uses the same pens, and somewhere in the video we'll show you what an interactive whiteboard looks like, but it seems like it uses the same pens, uses the same board technology. Nothing has really changed. However, the iPad, for the most part, will do everything that the interactive whiteboard will do, but it also does a little bit more.
Well, the first interactive whiteboard, and I'm speaking specifically to smartboard technology, it did not involve the use of the pens. It was actually just the touch interface. So it has evolved over time, and it may not have evolved in your perspective as quickly or as rapidly as you may think it should have, but with the integrated projectors and integrated sound, some smartboards in the past used projectors which were either mounted to the ceiling, or there was a long arm that connected the projector to the board, where now there's an ultra short throw where the projector is right at the screen, making it much more efficient when looking at space.
Well, since we're discussing cost and different things like that, why don't we just turn it just a little bit, and what is the difference between the cost? Because we know that a lot of schools are being hit by budget cuts and different things like that, and if we're going further into the future, we need to see which technology is cost effective.
Okay. Well, I can speak on the iPad. So let's say we wanted to do some type of interactive iPad whiteboard scenario. we would need a projector, we would need an iPad, and maybe an Apple TV, and possibly some wiring, and a screen. So 5 things that we need: the iPad, $4.99, the Apple TV, $99, the projector, anywhere from let's say $500 to $1,200. The screen, let's say $99, and the wiring kind of depends on how the projector is going to be wired into the building. I mean, I think we're not talking any more than $1,500 to $2,000 with an iPad.
And looking at the costs for the actual smart technology or interactive whiteboard technology, I would have to say the costs are similar. When you look at the price of the full smart board, oftentimes the price of the projector is incorporated into it. And if we're talking about upgrading a learning space, many learning spaces are already equipped with the projector, so that part could actually be factored out of the iPad cost also. But the lowest cost smartboard is approximately $1,000, and that does not include the projector. So I'm going off of the idea that the projector is already installed in the classroom, and once the smartboard or the interactive whiteboard is purchased, the software is included with the purchase of the smartboard. So one of the things that you did not factor in was the cost of the apps that you would have to purchase in order to use the iPad in the classroom.
And I still don't think it would come necessarily anywhere close to $1,000 that it would cost for the smartboard.
Okay. Okay.
Depending on what kind of app. I mean, you know, maybe somebody could sell a $500 app that would bring you up there, but I'm not sure that there's a $500 app that we would need to get it equivalent to a whiteboard.
Well, so the price that you offered a $1,500 cost with the breakdown, but I thought that what was the price that you were offering for the projector?
Well, the projector, I said anywhere from $500 to $1,200.
Okay.
If you were factoring in the fact or putting in there that the projector is already in the room, then really all you need is the iPad and possibly an Apple TV. So you're looking at $4.99 and $99. And so for $600, you have and maybe the cost of an app, depending on which apps you choose, you're looking at less than $700.
Well, I guess in my mind, with the use of the iPad in the classroom, one iPad would not be enough, because if we were to be more collaborative in the classroom, which is the purpose of the interactive whiteboard, you would need to have more than one, maybe 2 or 3, in order to have students actively involved in what was going on in the classroom.
Now I think you're getting into group discussion as opposed to the presentation part of it, because we can pass the iPad back and forth, and whereas you can do a problem or whatever and project it to the screen and then hand it off to the next person. With that, you may have some students that don't want to go to the front of the room. You can bring the iPad to them. They don't have to be embarrassed or feel reluctant to go up to the room. You bring the iPad right to them.
Well, that leads us into the next question. The next question is, what are the advantages of the interactive whiteboard technology?
Well, the advantages of the interactive whiteboard technology would be, one, the ability to collaborate both with students and with faculty. The classroom can be converted into a more constructivist environment, allowing the students to make their own learning out of the content that is being presented to them, and that can be done at the front of the room. Students can come up at any time to give an answer, to just to give their input on whatever the content. And I can't be content specific because every discipline would be different. Some of the other pros of the whiteboard are the fact that the software is already incorporated into the use of the board. Security, we talk about the mobility of the iPad, but no one is going to steal the smartboard off the wall. And one of the other advantages of using a smartboard and an interactive whiteboard and the software that comes along with it is the fact that any of the illustrations, any of the text that is written onto the whiteboard can be saved and then sent to the student or distributed by some method. So those are some of the pros that I am going to.
So as far as the iPad, what do you think are the advantages of an iPad?
Well, they're all probably too many to name. I'll see if I can wrap it up in a 45-minute segment that we have here. No, just kidding. I'll do a few. And this is kind of in contrast to what Dr. Gray said. One of the best things about the iPad is that all the students in the classroom can have one. So now they can be collaborative in groups. They can, be in groups and then work on a problem and then present that problem on the screen. So again, it helps if you have everybody able to, sit around, work on a problem, then present to it, as opposed to having to go up to the board and possibly disrupting the brain flow, if you will. The second thing is, again, you do get a interactive learning, I guess, that takes place because the student has the iPad right there, doesn't have to worry about the board. So if you were working in groups and we needed to test something out or work on a problem, we would have to go to the board. Whereas with the iPad, we can work it out on the iPad. I think another big advantage of the iPad is that it can do more than just be a whiteboard. It can, be a book. It could be some type of device that you use to collaborate with. It can be, so much more than just a interactive whiteboard. And you can even take notes on it, which is what I'm doing now.
Well, you can also take notes on a smartboard as well.
Although you wouldn't want to.
And this is one question that I have with the notes that you are creating. Would you be able to distribute those notes to a student or to a peer if you were not connected to the internet?
If I was not connected to the internet, I'm sure, well, I would print it. I could print it.
But you would not be able to distribute it to the student or to a faculty member.
Yeah, and I don't think you would be able to do that with a whiteboard.
You would.
How would you do that with a whiteboard?
Because you're connected to a computer, you could save that, if we were using a smartboard, you could save that smart notebook file as a PDF file, save it to a flash drive, and transfer it to another student. Simple as that.
That's not simple.
But you do have the ability to do that on a smartboard, whereas you do not have that ability on an iPad.
What I could do is wait until I got into Wi-Fi area, and then I could send that off.
True.
I think it would be more effective than using a USB drive.
Well,
because then you would have to give a USB drive to each student in the class. If you have a class of 20 or 25, that might be a little bit overwhelming. Or if you have one of these big these big gigantic classroom halls with over 200 students, then what do you do?
Well, in that case, that's an extreme case, of course. But I was just thinking of oftentimes we are in the classroom or we are in a learning setting where we might not have access to the internet. Say because maybe the internet is down at the university for some reason, or maybe we just don't have access to it. Maybe the wireless connectivity is just not adequate at that time. So it's just a fail-safe that I'm pointing out that is not available.
But thank God the internet always comes back, even if it is down for a little while.
But if it's not,
what about Bluetooth technology?
Bluetooth technology, that's interesting. I don't think people utilize Bluetooth technology as much as they could. Bluetooth is built into the iPad, and a lot of times, again, if you had a situation where all the students in the classroom had an iPad, then you could use Bluetooth to send the file from the teacher's iPad to each of the students. But, it's funny because